Event organizers, get ready to level up. You're listening to the Event Academy Live podcast, where we elevate motivated event organizers. This podcast is brought to you by Fusion, all the event ticketing features and support you need for one low price. Check them out at getfusionsolutions.com. Now, it's time for your host, Jake Sperley.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Event Academy Live. I have a chick from north of the border. Since I'm in the States, she's in Canada. This lady knows events, and I feel like we're relatively the same age, which is pretty cool. To be talking to somebody that A, gets events, to the level that I get events, and B, we're kind of the same age. So I'm super excited about this. It's Tegan Thompson from Crowd Design. She's up in Alberta, works with a plethora of events throughout kind of the Alberta region. We're going to be talking about all things that she does in hopes that maybe you can just grab a quick little nugget. So without further ado, Tegan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
Yeah, you bet. So it's kind of funny. I think we unofficially met at a mutual client of ours. And then, we connected on LinkedIn before that. And then we awkwardly met at an event because I didn't really know if it was you or not. And then after I was like, oh, no, wait. Yeah, that is that chick. And so it's kind of just come full circle. We've got to do, I guess, a couple of events together now, not directly working together, but kind of in different regards. And it's been fun to kind of grow this relationship in kind of not an odd way, but kind of a happenstance way.
Right. I think that's so unique now where it's like a virtual interaction happens much before sometimes in person now. And yeah, I felt the same thing where I'm like, I think that's him. I don't know.
Is that him? I don't know. I have 600 whatever LinkedIn connections. Who knows?
Right. And then it's almost like too late, right? Because it's like, well, now I've seen you for 3 days. So do we introduce ourselves or do we just pretend that didn't just happen?
Yeah. It's like after a bad first date. Yeah, that just didn't happen. We're gonna.
Right.
I guess, Tegan, for folks that don't know you, they've never heard of you. You're like some new lady on this show. Tell them a little bit about you, where you come from, what you do, just so they can kind of get familiar with your expertise.
Absolutely. So as you said, Canadian, Alberta born and raised, interprovincially went to university, took some recreation sports management programs, got bored, might shock you through this whole course of my life. You'll notice I get distracted easily. I actually went and got my welding ticket. So in Alberta here, we're an energy province. So that was just something I thought, heck, let's go do it. So I actually had my first and second year welding tickets. In Alberta, I believe it's still a 3-year program. So I was well on my way. And then I realized how hard of work it was. And that I felt like I had already gotten what I wanted from the industry. And that was just like that, realizing the other side of hard work. So I had academically always focused my efforts there. So this was kind of that, okay, gaining kind of the acceptance and respect for crews, laborers, blah, blah, blah. So from there, I started going back to my event background that I had studied in post-secondary. I was given an opportunity with a pretty big event producer here in Edmonton doing event operations. So it was a perfect fit, right? So I was working with the electricians, scaffolders, plumbers, all the trades guys, kind of bringing together the dreams and just through that execution mode. So it was kind of fascinating that as chaotic and like sideways my path has been, it all seems to have had a reason and kind of designed who I am today. Fast forward about 3 years, I worked for them, different capacities, but all in that event operations scope. Then I decided to go on my own through an organization restructure. I was basically given an opportunity that I was like, nah, don't vibe. I had no responsibility. So luckily I was able to make that decision, though we're not always that lucky. It was about, I like to say like 2 weeks, maybe a bit more, but that same event producer called me back and was basically like, hey, we still need you. What's the deal? Where are you at? What are you doing? And I joke with my inner circle, like I basically just blurted out. I have my own company now. Like I sold myself big. Like I had nothing going on. I'm pretty sure I was hanging out with my mom, like on her couch, cuddling puppies. Like I had nothing going on. But I sold it big, right? Like, because I had been thinking about going on my own. So I guess that's half of where sometimes entrepreneurs go, is just like pitch it and then just have the follow through to get there. So that's what I did. So they were my main client coming back. And then, of course, like you grab up a few more through those interactions. I guess you could fast forward again about 3 years of experience, and then the pandemic hit. So I'm not sure all health restrictions all over, but basically here it shut right down for almost that full 18-month period. And I was independent. So that really big attitude actually kind of got me into a lot of trouble, being that, yeah, like nobody had my back. I was just an expense on each budget, right? Being a show contractor. And yeah, so I had to get creative very quickly through the pandemic, which is probably when our paths crossed on LinkedIn, when I started having to become a little bit more vulnerable and pitch marketing in a more like progressive way than just hoping for the best word of mouth that I've always got to rely on before that. Yeah, and I found a way to stay relevant. And now as the world has reopened, it's just been crazy. So
yeah. I guess for folks that might know like the province, what are a couple shows that you work with just to kind of make ties meet here?
Yeah, so the big ones that I've worked on were traditionally produced by Northlands, now Explore Edmonton. So K-Days, Edmonton's big city festival. I've worked on Farm Fair, so that's a world premiere livestock show also in Edmonton. I've worked on several other ag shows of different calibers, none probably that anybody in the US would have heard. I've recently started working with Lethbridge and District Exhibition on some of their bigger shows. So I'm all over the province and then actually interprovincially as well. Country Thunder, Big Valley Jamboree. I have my foot in a few of those big producer stores right now, which is exciting.
So I guess it's mostly booth-based events, like more concert-y, vendor-y stuff. So we'll kind of take that in that direction. When somebody contracts you to do these things, I guess, what is the biggest glaring thing that you usually walk into of like, this has got to change? Like, what is that thing?
There's two that I've recently noticed. So again, one of the extensions of my business is doing strategic planning and audits for some of these producers who they might have the resources, but they're just not as refined of resources as they might need to deliver. One is just simply the disregard of deadlines. I mean, some careers you can be more agile. Unfortunately, in event production, some deadlines just can't change. And I find right now, and kind of like maybe it's post-COVID, I'm noticing it more where we just believe flexibility should always be key. It's probably the biggest challenge for a lot of organizations right now to just adhere to those deadlines that are truly critical for a proper planning cycle. And then the second one, and this one will either people will get it or they'll totally disagree with me, which is usually always the best points to make. But I think the traditional demographics that we've always targeted just don't exist anymore. So not everybody who's in their 30s has children. Not everybody who's in their 30s has a partner. And I just think that we've always approached events and marketing endeavors with very traditional thinking. And we just need to change that, right? Because there's so many people, who have time and money, but they're just being missed. And there's making up a really big part of our population. And it's funny that some of the event producers I've worked for are like, holy F, that's such a good point. And then there's some who are like, no, it's still the same thing. So I think just those are the big ones I've noticed recently, where like myself as a non-mom in my 30s, like I have a disposable income. There's so many events that just don't reach me because they're just thinking every woman in their 30s has children and has a spouse who pays the bills or whatever. So I think those are the ones I'm noticing right now in the event industry really need to get back on track or reinvented.
I think you make an interesting point on the marketing side. Something that we try and help our clients with. Just, we're not going to do the marketing for you, but like, hey, we kind of see what other folks are doing. Let's just kind of give you some pointers here. And it's shocking at A, we're targeting an old demographic, or B, we're not targeting at all. We're not even marketing our shows. We're hoping and praying. But it's like, I don't know. When I talk to mostly fairs, actually, it's literally any event. They go after, it's like, hey, we're going to do all this marketing towards like senior day and senior this, senior that. I'm like, all right, check it out. If you spend 10 grand on marketing to that demographic, let's say you get 5,000 of them, they're going to croak and die in 20 years. So you spent 10 grand, you're only going to get them for 20 years. Why don't you take that 10 grand, invest it into an early relationship with like a 20 or 30-year-old that you can now harvest them over the next 50 years, right? Like aiming everything. This isn't a senior care facility. Like aiming everything to old people. Not that you shouldn't. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying, look at the bigger opportunity here, especially if you have a constrained budget. If you only have so much budget, why are you blowing it on people that are going to be dead in 20 years? Like
and people who like, if there's a senior day, the senior will find out. Like you don't have to market that so much. Whereas like sell it on the person who doesn't have kids who needs to come to this fair for what reason. Like tell the story and get that out there to them, because they're the ones who will come and will spend money, right? And will come back year after year if it's a good experience.
Telling the story is another great point we can take this to. Is it's like, what is your event? What is it? What is it in one sentence? I think so often we get caught up in the, oh, we have this squirrel, we have this like trampoline guy, we have a big bouncy house. Like, cool, I don't care. Like, what is your event in one sentence? My brain is quite small. It's shocking to most. My brain is quite small. I need it in one sentence why I should give a crap about your events. What is it? If you can't tell me, that's fine. We can start somewhere. But like, you got to figure it out. You got to refine your marketing message. Like, go live on Facebook during your event. Tell the story. Walk through. Show behind the scenes. Like, people crave that stuff. Yeah. And so often, I think, especially in a social media world, we get caught up in, oh, we have to have these fancy campaigns. No, just flip your camera around and start talking. People eat that stuff up, you know? I guess, is that the vibe you get in the marketing world with kind of events now? Is either they're not doing it or they're just focusing on the wrong things, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, I would agree. And I even think like just producers, entrepreneurs, everybody, we keep looking at things in such a traditional sense. And I'm at fault for that too. And that's probably when we connected, was when I realized like, okay, marketing actually takes a level of spontaneity and vulnerability that most people just aren't willing to do when they're just looking at things in this very conservative social campaign, like check the boxes kind of format. Whereas I think most of my connections, clearly, like this went somewhere, it just comes from that spontaneity and like just sharing the real you, the real story, whether it's your event, whether you as an entrepreneur, whatever it is, just a little bit more authenticity, I think, is something our social media platform world is actually missing right now, because everybody just wants it to be staged and perfection. And then you kind of just lose, I don't know, the fun of it, the authenticity. Right. That's what I'm noticing. Yeah.
I mean, social media in itself is just a big glamorized highlight reel. So it's absolutely funny. I love social media for business. I hate social media for personal. Like I hate.
Absolutely.
I don't go on Instagram. I don't go on Facebook. I don't go on anything unless I'm like going down a list and following a bunch of prospective customers or creating videos on TikTok or whatever. I stay out of it. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that with their marketing within themselves too. And I think that then has to change the marketing narrative of events. People don't want to see these glammed up shots. They just want to see like, what are you doing? What is your, show me you riding the Ferris wheel or something. Like, I don't care about this super cool $10,000 graphic that you paid some guy overseas to do. Like, just show me what it is straight up. Super, super interesting. On that topic, maybe not on the marketing topic, what do you think is the best way for somebody to go about marketing their event if they don't have a budget? Like let's kind of talk about the marketing strategy behind it. Because I feel like so many events, even some of our clients, it's straight up hope and pray. They post on social media 3 times on Facebook and they're hoping 100,000 people are going to show up. Like, how do you, if act like I'm a fair, I don't do any marketing. Walk me through how you would start helping me.
Oh, geez. Marketing is not like my most special cap that I wear, but I am very familiar with working with organizations that have limited resources, whether that's personnel or budgets, most often budgets, especially through the last 3 years of our industry. Right. One is like, look at what your inventory already has. Like, so many of us have these master digital lists of our past clients and stuff, that an email campaign is a small investment to get a template set up, but then it's like such an easy way to get that direct contact with your potential, not even potential, like they're already your prospect. They're already there. So I mean, like the untapped resources that you've already spent time like harvesting and getting and recruiting, always ignored. And then mine is always just relationships, right? Like that word of mouth is stronger than we think. I always want to go towards digital because there's data and strategy and blah, blah, blah. But like if you don't have the money for that, it is just every single person who knows of your company and you know them through it. So it's not like going against any of the spam rules. Like reach out and let them be part of like ambassadors of what you have going on is just totally, yeah. No, it's ignored so easily by everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. If marketing isn't your favorite subject to talk about, what is your most passionate subject to talk about that we could truly level up the modern event organizer today on?
Yeah, well, I love marketing. I love building businesses, but I just know that you're following will probably have tons of advice for me that can put me in my place. So we'll just skip that for now.
Which is good. We can all learn.
I'll listen to some and I'll level up for the marketing part. It's maybe like not even where I'm at yet, but it's where here in September, I promised myself I would do some business development and like just the summer I had is totally not sustainable for future years. Like I'm only one person and it was the most intense, but of course, welcome chaos of my life. So I think the one thing, and I think your platforms even offer this, is just for the scalability of events. I can get passionate talking about the automation required to do so. So how many more times am I going to do a stupid administrative task over and over and over again when I have zero extra time until I can just find a solution to automate that? And then I can do that task 16 times in the same time frame kind of thing. So I think that's one thing that our events and small producers such as myself are really having to explore. We have all this technology and I know I'm underutilizing it. So whether that's with the booth management, whether that's your CRM and just those communications out to either your attendees, vendors, sponsors, whatever, there's just so many opportunities in our industry to automate it. And I don't mean an automated cold message. I mean, like, if I don't have to check an email because Outlook somehow magically did check it for me and knows I don't need to do anything, like those are where you can get out of the weeds and use your skill set in a leveled up way.
Right. Yeah, this is a topic we can really go ham on. Because it's true. Even like myself as being a solutions provider, it's always funny to me. You go, like you talk to a fair or an expo or whatever, and it's like, no, we still want to do the paper route. I'm like, oh, fine, stick to your paper. But do you realize how much time you're wasting by doing that? And I think it's an interesting topic, especially coming out of COVID when budgets are probably a little bit tighter. I know they're a little bit tighter, and you have less of not only less budget, you have less resources probably. It's like, what can we do to make that pain kind of go away? And the big thing I hear from event organizers is like, cool, it does all this, but we don't have the budget. It's like, you're not going to have the budget regardless. It's kind of like making time. You make time for the things that are going to like move the needle for you. You magically have budget for the things that are going to move the needle for you. You know, if you pay $2,000 for this solution, but it saves you a 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know, however long it is, like, is that worth it? I don't know. You know, what would you say to a producer that might be hesitant to kind of like letting go of that? Because I get it. Change is hard. Doing things different, letting some magical software do things for you is difficult. Like, totally understand. What would you say to that person that's just like, I love paper?
Well, I do love paper. I'm sure I have like 10,000 sticky notes on my desk right now. But it is about that. It's either you can be happy with where you're at, but if you're going to keep talking about wanting more resources, whether that's time or budget, then comes scaling. And here in this month of, business development is not just happening in September. It's just when I finally have time to execute a little bit of it. But then comes like just that trust of the process and getting yourself out of the weeds. Startup investments are not unique. Every business needs them. And ours just looks a little different, right? Because It's very different to have a tangible asset such as like, oh, I bought this trailer or whatever. But if I bought something that's going to free up my time to then bring on 6 more clients, well, then that's paid for. So I think that it's not seeing it as an expense, but seeing it as a tangible asset of your own time being given back to you, right? Like if somebody, we always say, if I could just have 2 more hours in a day, well, hey, $2,000 a year, I get 2 hours a day extra. Like that doesn't take much math to figure out it's more than worth it. So I think with any business, you have to just evaluate all sides of the equation. And I think with automation, it's just tricky because we think we can always find the time. So if you're happy with where you're at, you probably can find the time. But if you're going to keep looking at growing and scaling, well, then that's just not realistic. So,
Yeah. It's, I mean, we get it. Nobody likes change. It's hard. It's tough. But I think truly and I also would say that even the smallest organizations can utilize these solutions. It's like, just because you only have 100 booths at your whatever event doesn't mean you can't use something. Or just because you only have, I don't know, 5,000 previous customers in your MailChimp doesn't mean you can't reach out to them. Like, your size of your organization or event literally doesn't matter.
And I think that people, when they're evaluating it, should also think of the user experience, right? Like with that automation comes a better experience for exhibitors signing up or patrons looking for where the booths are on the maps or the exhibitor directories. Like there's all these things that like you cannot possibly manage it administratively and deliver the same quality to those users as well.
That is a great point. And if you take away anything from this, I think this might be like the nugget of it's not about you, it's about the people that are giving you the money. And that's something I talk about a lot about just on socials, is like, it doesn't matter what you want. It matters about the people that are giving you the money, whether that's ticket buyers, whether that's people buying booths, like whatever it is. That's who you got to be listening to. And okay, maybe you spend $1,000 to make maybe the ticket buying experience a little bit better. Like, how much more is that going to come back to? Like, what are the soft costs, but then also, losses that you're taking by not providing that great experience? What events are they going to instead of yours? Because it's hard to buy a ticket, or it's hard to book a booth. Like,
and exactly that. Like these exhibitors, like you might have that 100 booth show. Your show's not their only show, and they're going to compare that against their experiences with all the other producers. And like you said, ultimately at the end of the year, when they look, they're not just looking at the sales they made or their experience, like the on-site experience, but that leading up to it, like who was a headache to work with, who could never get back to me because they were short of time, whose information never matched up because administratively there was just no checks and balances. Like I do think these vendors, they go to so many shows a year, they'll start deciding that for you. And then I just also think it's very naive to think me being stubborn is going to slow the industry down. It's not. It's going to simply leave me behind. So as much as I love my sticky notes and checklists and not sharing my administrative work, if I don't, well, then I better just be happy where I'm at, because it's probably not going to develop on its own, right?
You're going to be left there.
Yeah.
Wrapping things up here, like if there was just one thing that you wanted to tell the average event organizer, like what would that one thing be?
I think it would have to be just what we talked about, because it's what I'm like so knee deep in right now, exploring. As somebody who, I'm great with deadlines, I'm great with customer service. I mean, I could list all things I'm great at, but I just simply can't copy and paste myself to scale up, right? To handle more, to open up my capacity, to make sure that my service and that experience for all of my clients, like they don't care if I'm busy. They don't care if I have 15 other clients. Like I care, that's great. But exploring what can be automated. Recently, I had started tracking in one of my project management softwares, like all the things I was doing in a day, and I just really had to look at like, what don't I need to be doing and what can I hire out? Because as much as I also will find the time, it's not sustainable. So find solutions to give you back a bit of your time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tegan, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. If you're new to this show, whatever, I hope you found value in it. I think the big takeaway here is like, it's not about you. Listen to your customers, listen to people giving you money. like think about their experience and, what can you do to automate things within your business. Events are businesses. They need to be ran like businesses. Events aren't just some big charity donation. If they are, you should give away free tickets. They're businesses. They have to be run like one. They have to have, it's an engine, a self-sustaining engine that has to do things on its own. Oh, this was great. Always love talking to you, Tegan. It was great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Jake.
You bet. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tune in next week, every week, Wednesday at, I believe it's 5 a.m. New episode dropping every single week. Until then, keep leveling up, fellow event organizers. We'll see you later.
Thank you for listening to the Event Academy Live Podcast.
This show is powered by Fusion.
Event solutions for the modern event organizer. Don't forget to like, rate, and review. We hope you enjoyed the show. Until next week, keep leveling up, fellow event organizers.